Consumers expect more from brands than ever before, especially because we are bombarded with so many messages that we have to go through each day. So, one way to stand out, to have an advantage, is through personalization. Marketers know this, they know that data is the key to that, but a lot of them are struggling. So, Zanti, what are the biggest obstacles facing marketers when it comes to personalization?
Yeah, Amanda, you are exactly right that marketers understand this. I actually did research that found that 98% of marketers said that personalization and data-driven personalization would make a difference and give them a competitive advantage, right? People recognize that this is an opportunity that we have and a way for us to deliver on customer expectations. I think the biggest obstacle that most marketers face at this time is really the lack of data that empowers the kind of personalization that really matters to their audiences, right? We know that we need to offer more personalized recommendations on content, on product, on use cases, on learning. And yet, we can only do it at a relatively high level of segmentation, if at all, because most of us actually don't have a fully integrated data system or we don't have enough data. And I think that's really because a lot of organizations have looked at data in a really ad hoc way, right? There's the customer relationship data that might sit in sales. There might be a little bit of website data that sits with your technical team. There might be customer service data that sits with your customer support team. And these things all exist in silos. They have not been treated as a holistic view of the customer, and they've never been brought together in a meaningful way that also is aligned with the goals and needs of the marketing team. And so I think the more we can address the need to collect enough data and bring that data together, I think the more marketers can actually act upon this idea of data driven personalization.
And you also talk about strategy. So marketers, like they may have all this data, may not know that we're collecting it or know that they could be using it. And you talk a lot about having marketers having a seat at the table when
Yeah.
it comes to that. So what are some of your recommendations?
Yeah, I think that the truth is marketers in a lot of ways are the front lines of our organizations when it comes to interfacing with our customers and putting our best foot forward with our customers, right? So we are the ones who are presenting the case of why is our brand highly relevant and the right fit for the customer in the relationship, whether it's B2B or B2C, right? And with that in mind, we're the ones who need to be able to know our customers and our prospects the best. And because of that, we need to have a seat at the data table. In other words, we need to be driving the strategy around which our organization is collecting data, designing the infrastructure of our data, and then using our data in order to deliver upon that expectation of the customers. Customers expect that brands are going to give them highly relevant information. And that's because we all have less attention than ever before, right? In the research that we did for the book, we found that nearly 90%, between 85 and 90% of American adults expect brands to interact with them based on the past history that they have with that brand. And a similar amount, about 85% of folks said that they expect brands to be giving them tailored recommendations based on their browsing behavior. That's not a surprise, right? All of us have shopped on Amazon. We've browsed shows on Netflix. We know that brands should be able to make recommendations to us based on our past history because there's an engine algorithm behind it that should understand what it is that we want. But we don't want that to be a one-off, right? If every time you signed into Netflix you had to retrain Netflix, it would be a horrible customer experience. But the fact that you log in and it shows you just a variety of shows that are really tailored to you is very powerful. In fact, years and years ago in an interview in TechCrunch, their VP of innovation said that their goal is essentially to come into Netflix and there's just one button that's like, play the show that I want to watch this second, right? Like they want to get that far into the idea of personalization. That's the expectation of customers. But to deliver on that, again, marketers have to have a seat at the table because we're asking the key questions that will help to determine how data should be collected. And if we don't have a strong seat at how we invest, where we put the infrastructure, how the data will be used, how we tell that story about data usage to our customers so that we have transparency and we have an opportunity to build trust, then we miss out on the ability to control our own destinies. That's why marketers need to have a seat at the table.
And diving into the data piece a little bit, because I thought this was interesting. Talk about we need to be collecting data, but also the right kind of data. And you go into the book about 9 different areas that, to collect data. But I know 3 of them that you said were more insightful than others, and maybe ones that you don't really see marketers paying too much attention to or diving into. So what are some of the most important data points you see marketers missing out on?
Yeah, some of the things that I talk about that are really underutilized by marketers are behavioral and psychographic data. Now, behavioral data we sometimes think about as, oh, how often does somebody buy with us, or how much do they spend, right? But I'm talking about, especially as content marketers, where are they browsing content? What is the content that drives them through to other content? How often are they interacting with us for support? How often are they interacting with each other in order to learn more about the industry, to have a more holistic view of what is the behavior of our customer, not only while they are using our product, but in that kind of ancillary realm around our product. And related to that, I talk a little bit about technographic data, or what is the tech stack that's related to our specific space, right? So for a lot of B2B businesses, this makes a lot of sense, right? If you are Zapier, you want to know what connections your customers are making to your tool. So you want to understand their tech stack, and you want to know what are the places that you need to develop more connections, for instance, or what are the relationships that indicate that there's a high value opportunity. But technographic data is valuable on the B2C side as well as the B2B side. There are many different situations where understanding your tech stack, the environment in which your audience is actually engaging, is going to be really valuable. Think about, for instance, if you are a video game company, you want to understand what are the headphones or accessories that your customers are using. If you are a company like Apple, you want to understand what are the other kinds of tools that your customers are going to expect to be able to use together, right? That really impacts the way you tell the story and impacts how you anticipate the needs of your customers. The final piece that I mentioned here was psychographic, right? What are the attitudes and motivations of your customers that determine what they value? Now, think about how you might shop online. I, as somebody who really cares about a good deal, might be looking for websites where they're saying, here's the threshold over which you get free shipping. Or, if you subscribe for an entire year, you're going to get a better value. Now, there are other people for whom they're not necessarily looking for the value, they're looking for, ease of use. So then the story that they want to hear is really more about how easy is the onboarding? What is the support like? How are you going to simplify their lives? Now, each person has a different set of motivations for different kinds of categories. If you can collect the data about those motivations, then you can tailor the messages on your landing pages, in your emails, in your communications with your customers based on those needs, so that somebody who's really focused more on the value piece is going to get a different set of messaging than somebody who's really focused on the ease of use piece. That is a more tailored approach to marketing that is also more effective, because you're not wasting your time delivering a message that's not relevant to your audience to that audience. So those are a couple of the different areas of data. But what I really talk about is understanding what is the right mix of data for your particular organization, for your particular high value customers, because every organization is going to look different. And one of the things that I encourage brands to think about within the book is that it's not about collecting every piece of data, right? Because then you are creating a different kind of overwhelm for your team, and quite frankly for your customers as well. It can be uncomfortable to share so much information. But by sharing the right information with the company, the customers get a more tailored experience. So helping to tell that story to them about what are we collecting, for what purposes, in order to make your life better, also builds trust. And I think that's a big opportunity for brands as well.
Well, that sounds great, Zonte. But so once they have all of that data, how do they use it effectively?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I really emphasize is the idea of selecting the right target audiences that are the highest value for you to go after, and to really focus on how do we build the deep relationship with those customers. One of the examples that I love is from the brand Target. So if you're not already familiar with Target. If you're outside of the US, you may not know it's a big box store like a Walmart. You can buy groceries and all of the things that you need in life. And one of the areas that their marketing team identified was an opportunity for them was to identify women who were in the first trimester of their pregnancies before they had self identified for marketing purposes to other brands. Or at the end of the first trimester is the time around which a lot of women will register for lists to get free samples of things. And at that point, you're competing against a whole bunch of other brands. But in that first trimester, before they've announced that they are pregnant, Target would have an opportunity to win them over and build habits with them that would last not only their entire pregnancy, but hopefully their entire parenthood. They also would have an opportunity to build that competitive advantage that allows them to get ahead of brands that only find out once they've actually registered for some lists, right? So the target marketing team recognized our opportunity is to win people earlier than our other competitors. They went to their data analytics team and said, how could we build a segment and identify the behaviors of women who are in their first trimester? And the data analytics team, this was back in 2002, it took them months to figure out a variety of different patterns that they could analyze and kind of pull out and understand. And it was things like switching to unscented lotions and shampoos, and suddenly buying vitamins and stopping purchasing other products, et cetera, right? So they kind of built a profile of these couple of behaviors have a high propensity of being women in their first trimester. They did such a great job with that data that when the marketing team went out to market and started sending direct mail pieces, they found that it was extremely accurate. They were giving information to women in their first trimester before their families even knew that they were pregnant. It was that accurate. And what that demonstrated was that, again, they went after a high value audience before their competition in a way that was super relevant to them, allowing them to build this habit that would last the lifetime of that customer. So, what are they doing? They're increasing their customer lifetime value. They're getting in front of their competition, and they're doing so by asking the questions about who are the target audiences that really matter to us. The goal of data driven personalization, I think sometimes people assume it's about how do we market to every single customer in a personalized way. The truth is, you and I know that marketing teams and organizations don't have the bandwidth to do that in any really rigorous fashion. Of course, you can have a personalized website experience, but to really run campaigns that are putting emphasis, we have to put our time and energy against those audiences that truly move the needle. So in the book, I help to present some frameworks of how do you identify those high value audiences, and how do you identify the audiences that are going to have that long customer lifetime value. Sometimes it's about these kinds of behavioral things, other times it's about identifying who are the people who are the proselytizers in your community, right? I talk about Lego or Starbucks, where they have folks who they build not only habits but passion around the product, and then they are spreading the word and helping those organizations to bring in more people. How do you find those people? How do you use the data to serve them better? How do you help them to give you the feedback you need in order to improve your products and services so that you are highly relevant to that audience and creating content that continues to engage them for that lifetime?
Going back to the Target thing, and you also have to do that in a non-creepy way, right? So they're not like, especially if they're like haven't said anything to anybody, but Target has identified them as being pregnant and they may not have been telling people, but now they're targeting those messages. But you have to be very careful, right?
100%. I think balancing Personalization and privacy is definitely a big part of this storytelling too. With the Target example, I share that they recognized that this was a little bit creepy. They had some interactions with customers where they were like, "Ooh, how did you know?" And they realized that by including the products for pregnant women with a variety of other products, say gardening and outdoor and swimming, then it came off less creepy because it was just a variety of things for you, Amanda, and that's not awkward, right? And so they realized they had to think also about the human psychology of the delivery of those messages. The other piece of it is how do we use data collection in a transparent way where it does build trust, right? I share a couple of brands in the book who do a really good job of proactively asking people about their preferences in a way that builds trust. For instance, K Jewelers and a couple of other brands, I think, including Levi's Jeans, ask customers ahead of Mother's Day, would you like to opt out of Mother's Day messaging? Because they know that for some people, it can be a sensitive time of year. Their mother recently passed. They have a poor relationship with their mother. They want to become a mother. It's a time that they don't want to see that marketing messaging. By giving people the opportunity to opt out of that messaging, again, they're building on that profile of, okay, this is the preferences of this person, but they are also building respect and trust with the customer. So I think that that can be a powerful opportunity as well. I also share the example of Lemonade Insurance, where they've used a lot of their data collection policy in a very transparent way to demonstrate to customers here's what we promise we will do and we won't do. This is how we're using data and this is how we're not using data. And they've written it specifically to be very human and very easy to understand because they want their customers to have the perception that they are not going to do something untoward with their data, which insurance, as well as I do, with actuarial tables and things, they know a lot about you. So it's understandable that you would want to have a grasp on, what are they collecting and why, and what is it going to be used for, and how are they going to analyze it. So I think part of that storytelling is really smart too, of here's how we approach our communications around data. Data doesn't have to be scary. In the book, I talk a little bit about how, our research found that if you ask people, do you prefer a balance in the balance of privacy versus personalization? What do you prefer? And actually, a slight plurality of people prefer personalization. They'd rather have more convenience, right? And that makes sense. PwC just came out with some research recently in the last couple of months, and they found something very similar. When you ask people, would you share data if it is used to make your experience better and personalize the recommendations around content, around offers, around usage? People said, yes, I would share my data, right? That there is a desire. I think they found that more than 70% of people said that they would share their data. So I think people recognize that there's a trade-off and there's a value. And it comes back to what I said before of people are busier than ever before. They are getting more messages than ever before. We want to go to the places that simplify our lives. So when we can find folks who are giving us the exact right content recommendations so that you don't have to waste your time digging for articles, or the exact right product based on the things that you've bought before, that makes you feel better. I mean, I think that one thing that Amazon has added that I value as the mom of a young child is that they recommend the size that you should purchase based on how long it's been since the last time you purchased, right? So they actually change that size over time. So, if 6 months ago I bought a 12-month size for my kid, they're bumping up to 18-month the next time I shop because they go, you know what, your child has grown. You probably have different needs based on where we are. Like, here's what you should be buying. And that simplifies my life, right? Because I'm less likely to make a mistake by ordering the wrong thing. And that saves them time and energy on returns because they recognize that tired parents probably make mistakes like that, right? So I think there's a benefit for customers as well as the brands when we do this right and we're thoughtful about it. And one of the things that I just want to emphasize is this isn't just for big brands, right? Smaller organizations can do this better than ever before because we've got technologies, etc.
So, Zonti, I know all the questions that are going to be, or one of the biggest questions that's going to be on marketers' minds is, can this be pulled off without a big budget or resources?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One of the things that I'm really excited about and that I just start to touch upon in the book, because in some ways I was writing it during kind of the earlier days of the giant boom of generative AI, is technology is getting cheaper and cheaper that can help us to do this work at scale. One of the things I'm excited about generative AI is that it can actually layer on top of your data so that you can use natural language to query the data and make heads or tails of it. If you bring together all of your data into a data warehouse where you've got all of this information together, that example I shared of Target before, it could come down to maybe just a couple of queries, right? Build me a segment of all of our customers who've identified as pregnant. Um, Tell me what they were doing within the first 3 months of their pregnancy and build a model for that. Now build us a segment of people who look like that now, right? In 3 queries, you've essentially created something that, again, took their data analytics teams months to figure out. The tools are making it much faster and much cheaper to do that kind of analysis. The other thing that I encourage people to think about is, again, personalization and the collecting of data does not have to be complicated. It could be as simple as asking a couple of onboarding questions so that, when people come to your website, you are understanding who they are, what they are shopping for, and what those expectations are. I share a small business example in the book of a company called Farmhouse Tech. They are a horseback riding company, a small business out of South Carolina. And they simply ask, are you a sports rider? Are you the parent of a child taking lessons? Are you a hobby rider? They're asking a couple of basic questions at the beginning of that relationship. And that changes the way they send you emails. It changes the kinds of offers that they're giving you. And it changes the content that they're delivering to you in those different areas, right? The articles that are very advanced for somebody who is a serious sports writer is going to be written about how to take care of your horse when injuries occur. Whereas the article for a parent whose child is starting to take lessons is going to be about, what kind of equipment is going to be the most value for the longest period of time based on the age of your child, right? So they're creating different pieces that make sense for that audience and then delivering it to them in the right spaces. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It really is about asking your customers the questions that help you to give them the best experience based on those needs in the particular areas that you can support them. And I share a whole bunch of examples where folks are doing things like that. The onboarding opportunity, I think, is one that a lot of marketers are actually missing out on, but it makes such a difference because just by writing a couple of different rules around what kind of email content we're delivering and how we personalize certain blocks on our website or how we deliver SMS, we can really be more tailored and more valuable and more useful to our customers.
Where can people find the book? Where can they get it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's carried everywhere that books are sold. So you can hop on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, indiebooks.org. You can also go to koganpage.com/data-driven personalization, which is the publisher. And if you go there, you will get free shipping in the US and the UK. And I'll even share my 20% off code, which is ZHData20. And you can save 20% off when you order from that website.
Awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Congratulations.
for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.